Welcome to our journey through one of the most dynamic periods in world history, a time when the forces of ambition, power, and strategy intertwined to shape the destiny of an entire Mediterranean realm. Today, we explore how Rome, a city that began on humble foundations, emerged as a dominant world power and how it confronted the formidable maritime empire of Carthage. I will guide you step by step through this fascinating narrative of expansion, diplomacy, conflict, and legacy. In 265 BC, the Mediterranean was a mosaic of diverse states and cultures, each with its own ambitions and agendas. With the unification of the Italian peninsula, Rome embarked upon a new phase of political life, one marked by growing influence and a profound sense of destiny. As Rome expanded, it was drawn into complex relationships that brought it into contact with established powers such as Egypt, Syria, Macedon, and, most notably, Carthage. The stakes were high, as each of these powers had carved out empires spanning vast territories, and their interactions would define the course of history. I am thrilled to be your guide on this historical adventure. I have always been fascinated by the interplay of culture, commerce, and military prowess that has shaped nations. Today, I invite you to join me in exploring the intricate web of alliances, rivalries, and ambitions that characterize this dynamic era. Amidst this diverse backdrop, Rome's transformation from a regional power to a significant international force was achieved through strategic expansion, diplomatic ingenuity, and military determination. Its ascent was not merely the result of conquest, but also of introspection and adaptation that allowed it to absorb and transform influences from across the known world. This process would eventually lead Rome to challenge the preeminent power of Carthage, a rival whose own history was steeped in ancient traditions and maritime dominance. In this episode, we will delve into the geopolitical configuration of the Mediterranean in 265 BC, trace Rome's rise in power, examine the intricate workings of Carthage's government and economy, and set the stage for the dramatic conflicts that would emerge between these two exceptional civilizations. Our exploration is designed to be clear and relatable, offering a comprehensive understanding of this transformative era in a manner that is both engaging and accessible. Let us begin our journey by first painting a detailed picture of the Mediterranean world as it existed in 265 BC indeed. To fully understand Rome's imminent rise, it is essential to examine the Mediterranean world as it stood in 265 BC. During this period, the region resembled a vibrant tapestry composed of diverse political entities, each weaving its own story of power, culture, and ambition. The Eastern Mediterranean was dominated by the Hellenistic monarchies, which had emerged from the collapse of Alexander the Great's vast empire. Among these, Egypt under the Ptolemaic dynasty, Syria governed by the Seleucids, and Macedon led by the Antigonids were the most prominent. Egypt, ruled by the descendant dynasty of the Ptolemies, was a land of rich agricultural potential owing to the fertile banks of the Nile. The Ptolemies, though not native to Egypt, managed control through a centralized administrative system supported by loyal Greek officials and mercenaries. Their aim was to secure strategic control over the Aegean Sea and southern Greece, often enforcing strict revenue systems on a population whose status was close to that of serfs. Every grain of wheat and every drop of water was meticulously managed to sustain an extravagant royal lifestyle at Alexandria. In contrast, the Seleucid Empire in Syria sprawled across a vast expanse that stretched from the Aegean Sea to the borders of India. Its immense size was both a strength and a vulnerability, for the empire's diverse peoples and distant provinces made it challenging to govern uniformly. Mercenary armies and Greek-founded cities acted as the glue holding the Seleucid dynasty together. Yet frequent internal revolts and administrative dissensions weakened the overall stability. The empire's attempt to meld different cultures often resulted in a mosaic that was as fragmented as it was grand. Macedon, though smaller in extent and resources than its eastern counterparts, retained a strong national character rooted in its Philhellenic and martial traditions. The Antigonid dynasty harnessed this spirit by maintaining a robust military system, reminiscent of the campaigns of Philip II and Alexander. This yielded an army that, albeit small, was disciplined, efficient, and supported by a patriotic populace. Beyond its borders, the influence of Macedon extended into regions such as Thessaly and the eastern Greek city-states, which both revered and resisted its sway. Amidst these great powers operated several minor yet strategically important states, including the Aetolian and Achaean confederacies, the Kingdom of Pergamon, the Naval Republic of Rhodes, and the independent city of Syracuse in Sicily. Each of these entities played a crucial role in balancing power in the region by forming alliances and pursuing their own agendas. Their presence added layers of complexity to an already intricate geopolitical landscape. Meanwhile, to the west of these Hellenistic realms lay Carthage, a rising force whose commercial and maritime ambitions soon disrupted the established order. Although often seen as separate from the Hellenistic world, Carthage played an integral role in the broader Mediterranean theater, forging trade networks and military alliances that set the stage for conflict. Each state, with its unique strengths and vulnerabilities, contributed to a dynamic environment where exchange and rivalry defined the era. Rome's rise from a modest city on the Italian peninsula to a formidable world power was a gradual yet relentless process, characterized by determination, strategic innovation, and a willingness to learn from its encounters with other great civilizations. Following the unification of Italy, Rome set its eyes on the broader Mediterranean, determined to secure its influence in the face of established powers. As it expanded, the Republic developed a reputation for both administrative efficiency and military discipline, blending tradition with innovation in ways that would astonish its contemporaries. Throughout its early expansion, Rome engaged in numerous diplomatic overtures and military campaigns that laid the groundwork for its imperial destiny. Rome's leaders were adept at leveraging alliances with local populations and smaller states, incorporating conquered peoples into its socio-political framework. This practice not only bolstered Rome's military strength, but also enriched its cultural diversity. With every new conquest, Rome absorbed novel ideas and military tactics, gradually transforming from a regional force into an empire with ambitions that reached the farthest corners of the Mediterranean. I have observed that Rome's strategy was as much about winning hearts and minds as it was about winning battles. Far from being a monolithic force, Rome was an ever-adapting organism that learned from its victories and defeats alike. This reflective insight reinforces the idea that Rome's success lay in its capacity to integrate varied cultural influences. The Republic's political institutions, though rooted in age-old traditions, evolved to meet the challenges of governing an ever-growing territory. Innovations in legal frameworks, taxation, and civic organization contributed to a governance model that could sustain extensive administrative demands while still nurturing a strong sense of communal identity. Rome's military prowess was a central pillar of its expansion. The Roman legions, renowned for their discipline, tactical flexibility, and innovative engineering, formed the backbone of its military campaigns. These soldiers not only secured Rome's frontiers, but also served as a mobile force capable of confronting emerging threats across diverse terrains. Their successes reinforced national unity and fostered a widespread belief that Rome was destined for greatness. As Rome's influence spilled beyond the Italian peninsula, its foreign policies grew increasingly ambitious. What began as localized conflicts soon transformed into grand confrontations with distant powers, notably Carthage, whose vast control over the Western Mediterranean posed a significant challenge to Roman aspirations. The proactive projection of power marked a decisive shift in its foreign policy, heralding a new chapter that would define the trajectory of its imperial pursuit. Rome's expansive journey was characterized by bold decision-making and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. Its strategic choices in matters of diplomacy and warfare underscored a deep understanding of the balance between force and negotiation. Each victory was not only a territorial gain, but also a lesson in governance and cultural integration, paving the way for what would eventually become one of history's most remarkable empires. During the mid-3rd century BC, Carthage emerged as a formidable maritime force that dominated the Western Mediterranean. Founded as a Phoenician colony, Carthage had grown from its humble beginnings to command a vast commercial empire built upon seafaring trade and strategic colonization. The city's rise was driven by an ambitious spirit that combined economic ingenuity with military pragmatism, enabling it to exert control over a network of territories stretching from North Africa to parts of Spain, Corsica, Sardinia, and beyond. At the heart of Carthage's power was its distinctive form of republican government, marked by a strong aristocratic influence. The central political structure included a primary assembly, the Suffetes, and deliberative bodies such as the Senate and the Council. The assembly, composed of citizens meeting certain age and property requirements, was responsible for electing chief magistrates and generals. The Suffetes, whose roles encompassed judicial, financial, and religious functions, were pivotal in guiding state policy. Meanwhile, the Senate and the Council, largely controlled by prominent noble families, played crucial roles in formulating both long-term strategy and immediate decisions, ensuring that private interests often intersected with public policy objectives. Economically, Carthage's strength was anchored in its ability to maintain a commercial monopoly across the Western Mediterranean. It carefully regulated trade through negotiated treaties that limited the access and influence of potential competitors, including Greek and Roman traders. The prosperity of Carthage was bolstered by its extensive overseas empire, which not only provided valuable resources such as metals, timber, and agricultural produce, but also secured strategic ports and naval bases. This economic leverage allowed Carthage to finance its military campaigns and sophisticated maritime operations. Naval power was indispensable to Carthage's imperial vision. The Carthaginian navy, renowned for its skill and innovation, safeguarded trade routes and ensured dominance over vital sea lanes. Carthage built a fleet that was second to none, characterized by large, well-designed ships and proficient crews, often recruited through its vast network spanning various Mediterranean peoples. However, the reliance on mercenary forces for land warfare exposed vulnerabilities in Carthage's military apparatus. Despite their bravery and expertise, mercenary armies occasionally suffered from issues of loyalty and discipline, particularly during extended campaigns when supplies and morale faltered. Before the full-scale eruption of the Punic Wars, a series of diplomatic maneuvers and escalating tensions steadily nudged Rome and Carthage toward inevitable confrontation. For centuries, both powers had coexisted in an uneasy equilibrium, their interactions governed by treaties that balanced mutual economic interests against emerging strategic rivalries. The diplomatic landscape was marked by a delicate interplay of cooperation and competition, where long-standing agreements began to unravel under the pressure of shifting regional ambitions. Historical treaties, some dating back to the late 6th century and others revised as recently as 348 BC, had for a long time regulated commercial exchanges and even laid the groundwork for joint military action, such as the alliance against Pyrrhus. When this common enemy was vanquished, the bonds that held Rome and Carthage together started to weaken, giving rise to an atmosphere of suspicion and guarded diplomacy. Economic interests further deepened the divide between the two powers. Carthage's strict policies aimed at maintaining its commercial monopoly clashed with Rome's budding aspirations to expand its trade networks across the Mediterranean. As Rome's ambitions grew, so too did the perception that its enterprising merchants were encroaching upon territories long dominated by Carthaginian commerce. This economic rivalry intensified the diplomatic stalemate, as negotiations increasingly became arenas for implicit threats and overt challenges, setting the stage for conflict. Military posturing added another layer of complexity to the prelude of war. Both Rome and Carthage began reinforcing their forces and establishing strategic outposts, engaging in a silent race to secure critical positions in the Mediterranean. Carthage's reliance on its powerful navy and trusted, though sometimes unreliable, mercenary armies contrasted sharply with Rome's well-organized legions and disciplined conscripts. Instances of military skirmishes and provocative maneuvers along contested borders only served to heighten tensions further. Reflecting on these developments, I believe that every minor diplomatic shift and military maneuver carried significant meaning. The prelude to war was thus not defined by a singular incident, but rather by a cumulative process of miscalculations, misunderstandings, and evolving strategic ambitions. Economies grew more intertwined, yet also more competitive, while long trusted alliances frayed under the strain of emergent power dynamics. As diplomatic channels grew increasingly strained, covert communications and secret negotiations only deepened the mutual distrust between Rome and Carthage. Each palace and port became a stage for subtle power plays and double dealings, where promises were made and broken with an almost casual disregard for long held agreements. In conclusion, the early phase of Rome's fight for Mediterranean dominance set the foundations for one of history's most dramatic chapters. Rome's rapid rise, marked by innovative diplomacy and formidable military expansion, clashed with Carthage's equally ambitious blend of commerce and naval power. These turbulent interactions did not merely result in wars, but in profound transformations that reshaped political, economic, and cultural landscapes for centuries. Reflecting on this era, I am struck by how the ambitions and strategies of two great powers continue to influence modern ideas of governance and empire building.